Hey everyone, it's Erik. I'm a professional counselor here that works with addiction, and we're going to talk about the tempo of the 12 steps. And people might wonder, why do you do the 12 steps so fast? Well, I would say that it's actually they may be doing things too slow. I'm not trying to be critical, but if I think tempo matters. I think that if we go do something too slow, we're going to end up with problems. And I do think built into any addiction, there is sloth or procrastination that's just embedded right into it. So without further ado, let's just jump into this and look at what this looks like. So I'm going to go at a pretty fast pace here. And we're not going to go through all the steps and what they are. We do that in other videos. My point is to show you how if we were seeing the Alcoholics Anonymous big book as a cookbook, and when it says immediately put in the oven or immediately take out to cool, stir vigorously, that's what it's talking about. We can see it right here. So page as we get right into the forward here, and I'm sorry if it's dizzy, but in the forward, we of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. Recovered. Okay, so it's not this recovery thing, which was invented to kind of make people that were chronic slippers feel better. So that's like, oh, I've been in recovery for a long time. When you go to the hospital, you want to get your operation done and then recover so that you can go home. You're not in recovery for a month. Um, you know, hey, they're still in recovery. Yeah. So to show other alcoholics or any addict precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. So if one's asking, what's the main purpose? To precisely show how to recover. Okay. And we're then going to go to XXIX. So that's 29 if I remember my Roman numeral thing here. Yeah, it could be this very next one. Thank you for your patience. What is the solution? Perhaps I can best answer this by relating one of my experiences. About 1 year prior to this experience, a man was brought in to be treated for chronic alcoholism. He had but partially recovered from a gastric hemorrhage, etc., mental deterioration. Okay. He has lost everything worthwhile in life, etc. He frankly admitted and believed for him that there was no hope, which is step one. He accepted the plan outlined in this book. 1 year later, he called to see me, and I experienced a very strange sensation. I knew the man by name and partly recognized his features, but there all resemblance ended. From a trembling, despairing, nervous wreck had emerged a man brimming over with self reliance and contentment. So that was in 1 year. And do you think he stretched the steps over a year? I think not. Um, let's go to page 13. And this is in Bill's story. Bill's story is probably often not where I have people start because people might read and go, well, I'm not that. But it's really important to read it. In fact, we're going to do another video on, we're just going to read together Bill's story because it's pretty interesting. Okay, we'll cut to page 13 here. This is when Bill humbly offered himself to God. And he already worked through some of the aspects of God, the admitting powerless. A friend named Eddie comes to him. But this is how he describes it. And does this sound simple? Okay. This doesn't sound complicated. Okay. There I humbly offered myself to God as then I understood him to do with me as he would. I placed myself unreservedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, that without him I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away root and branch. That's steps 4, 5, 8, 7. I have not had a drink since. Okay. My schoolmate, this is Ebby, visited me and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. Step 5. We made a list of the people I had hurt toward whom I felt resentment. Step 4. I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals, admitting my wrong. Step 8 and 9. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to right all such matters to the utmost of my ability. Very simple. Doesn't sound drawn out. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive. That's step 11. And that is kind of a simple solution for any problem we face. Page 14. Let's see. That might have been page 14. Okay. 17. There is a solution. Nearly all have recovered. They have solved their drink problem. Do we hear people say they solved their addiction problem, whether it be pornography, alcohol, spending, gambling, compulsive overeating, work, etc.? It's not that things don't take time, but I think that there is too much slowness to this process. Well, it actually becomes not a process. If I bake a cake over a month's time, it's going to mold. I'm not going to end up with a cake. So 29. Well, actually, I'm jumping ahead of myself. 25. Page 25. Here we come. Okay. There is a solution. Almost none of us like the self-searching, the leveling of our pride, the confession of shortcomings, which the process required for its successful consummation. Yeah, I don't think people like to do this. I don't, but I know it's so good for me. It's simple. That's steps 4, 1, and 5. Therefore, when we approached by those who had the problem, when therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved, there was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. So this is a simple kit of spiritual tools. We had found much of heaven and been rocketed into the fourth dimension, of existence of which we had not even dreamed. I could read a little bit too much here. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that our Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for which we could never do by ourselves. Okay. All this, psychotherapy, all that stuff, I just don't see it as helpful. Let's see here. Because in Bill's story, you'll see, hey, self-knowledge, that'll save me. Yeah, no, it won't. Page 29. Further on, clear-cut directions are given showing how we recovered. Not vague directions or do it however you want, but clear-cut directions. These are followed by 43 personal experiences. Each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his or her own point of view the way they have established their relationship with God. Okay, so these are the stories in the last half. We learned, this is as simple as step 1 is. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics or any addict. This is the first step in recovery. Do we need to write out a long story or a long inventory and self-analyze to do that? Well, if you do, how many of us have ever stayed sober doing that? and working with treatment centers that will encourage that. They say, we try to get them past step 5 before they leave us if they're proud of themselves. That's like, we're so proud. Here's some batter for your cake. And you leave with a bunch of batter in a pan. And it's like, that's not going to work. Okay. People, just follow the recipe. And if there's a little bit of animation and frustration, it's because I see people die, not necessarily the people I've worked with. I had one person pass away, but I see people die because what people are thinking is the recipe isn't the one in this book. And a lot of times the 12-step groups will use the AA book, but then they write their own literature, and inadvertently it kind of gets watered down. So let's go to page 39. Mankind, our tendency is to want to complicate things. I think it's from the fall of mankind that things were simple and we try to complicate it, and that's our ego and our self. But the actual or potential alcoholic or sexaholic or spendaholic, gambler, compulsive overeater, you get the idea, and codependent, with hardly an exception, will be absolutely unable to stop drinking or doing their addiction on the basis of self-knowledge. There's a lot of videos. People all want to say this is the cause of addiction. This is how we're going to get better. If they have a solution that's working great, I would love to see it, because I could offer too, but I haven't seen huge success. And I think it just leads to more introspection. 42. I saw that willpower and self-knowledge would not help in those strange mental blank spots. Yeah, and part of this comes from clinical experience of 30 years and my own personal life. Self-knowledge, I could make a ton of money. I wouldn't, but I would make a ton of money just listening to the reasons why people drank or lusted or overate or whatever. Yes, they had hard childhoods, but not everybody. Some people had great childhoods and they end up with that. How does that model then fit? I know there's a gentleman, Gabor Mate, who's saying that it really results, in this authenticity and connection thing. That's all very interesting. I think it's very interesting and maybe helpful for other things. Will that understanding keep people sober? I don't think so. We'll see. We'll see. The fruit will be in whether it does or not. So at the bottom of page 43, let's see. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think this is what I want to read. Yeah. Okay. Then this is page 42. Then they outlined the spiritual answer and program of action. Wow, we're going to hear that phrase over and over, program of action, which 100 of them had followed successfully. Though I had been only a nominal churchman, their proposals were not intellectually hard to swallow, but the program of action, though entirely sensible, was pretty drastic. Yeah, it is. I'm not saying by what I'm saying it's simple that it's easy. Yeah, it meant that I would throw several lifelong conceptions out of the window. That was not easy. But the moment I made up my mind to go through with the process, I had the curious feeling that my alcoholic condition was relieved. And in fact, it proved to be. Therapists, other smart people, not that therapists are smart people, but doctors, attorneys, it can be hard for them. People that know everything. This is not going to be easy. You have to start from a place of nil, letting go of absolutely everything you think you know. Because God gives grace or power to the humble, but he's opposed to the proud. So that's why I see, and people go, they're shocked if I say that therapy is kind of contraindicated in trying to help. Well, it can be, because the person's just getting more and more self-knowledge. And that's not helpful here. let's see. Yeah, this is interesting. The alcoholic at certain times has no effective mental defense against that first drink. Well, what about trigger management? What about relapse prevention programs? What about self knowledge? What about going to IOP, intensive outpatient program? What about calling a sponsor? What about just reading and going to 90 days, 90 meetings? It says, except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. Huh. Like, are you kidding me? That's what this is saying, that God is the only one who can keep me that defense against from acting out if I'm a sexaholic or overeating or overspending or gambling or drinking. That's what the book says. Yeah. We agnostics. Let's see. I personally thought, well, I'm a person of faith. I don't need to read this book, this chapter. Big mistake. Big mistake. This is really powerful. On the bottom of page 44, if the mere code of morals or a better philosophy of life were sufficient to overcome alcoholism or addiction, many of us would have recovered long ago. But we found that such codes and philosophies did not save us no matter how much we tried. We could wish to be moral. We could wish to be philosophically comforted. In fact, we could will these things with all our might, but the needed power wasn't there. Our human resources, as marshaled by the will, were not sufficient. They failed utterly. Lack of power, that was our dilemma. We had to find a power by which we could live. And it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But where and how were we to find this power? Well, that's exactly what this book is about. Its main object is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. This means we have written a book which we believe to be spiritual as well as moral. And it means, of course, we're going to talk about God. So the gist of the program for me is I needed power to do what I needed to do. That just say no doesn't work. Just try harder doesn't work. Just confess to your group and your sponsor and just make phone calls and 90 meetings and 90 days and just work on your childhood trauma. Just work on your childhood, even if you didn't have trauma. Just write out volumes and volumes of inventories and fill out all these questionnaires about how you perceive God and how that's been affected by your parenting. Yeah, no, stop. Just stop. We just have to find a power greater than ourselves, which will solve our problem. And that's what this book is about. If you're interested, then let's continue on. So just knowing this isn't going to stop. And that's why so many people do not recover, because they just are going to hold on to their own ideas, or there's something, a spiritual force that's going to try to get them to do anything else other than to totally, simply surrender their life to God in a specific way. Page 47. This is how easy, not easy, but simple it is. Like it talks about, well, what if you're agnostic? What if you don't even believe in God? It says all at the start, like just let go of any prejudice that you have about God. Do not let any prejudice you might have against spiritual terms deter you from honestly asking yourself what they mean to you. At the start, this was all we needed to commence spiritual growth, to effect our first conscious relation with God as we understood him. So we used our own conception, however limited it was. Guess what? I think God himself is anonymous in this program, that he will reach out with his love to anybody who raises their hand and say, God, please just reveal yourself to me. What? Not write out a bunch of 20 questions about and self-analyze? Yeah, why not just ask God to reveal himself to you? Okay. I'm emotional about this, but it's quite simple. Do you think 20 questions in a workbook can slow down the process? It will. So it says we needed to ask ourselves but one short question. One short question. Do I now believe, or am even willing to believe, that there's a power greater than myself? As soon as a man or woman can say that he does believe, is willing to believe, we emphatically ensure him that he is on his way. It has been repeatedly proven among us that upon the simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. Like, really, like even just the beginning of a relationship with God, I see this happen all the time. I I will admit, as a person of faith, I was very nervous to share my faith so as to not cause problems. But, you know, if I just start talking about a spiritual world and letting people just ask God to reveal himself to them, do you think God's not going to do that? Of course he will. Um, so then, um, yeah, lay aside prejudice. Here we are. They flatly declared that since this page 50, that they came to believe in a power greater than themselves, to take a certain attitude toward that power, attitude of just being openness, willing, and humble, and to do certain simple things, not complicated things. It says simple here. There has been a revolutionary change in their way of living and thinking. In the face of collapse and despair, in the face of the total failure of their human resources, counseling, filling out workbooks, support groups, all that. Yeah, human resources. They found that a new power, peace, happiness, a sense of direction flowed into them. This happened soon after they wholeheartedly met a few simple requirements. Yeah, yeah, it's yeah, this has been a long time in coming making this video, because I saw throughout this book how simple it was. Top of page 57. And we're going through step 2. Yeah. What is this but a miracle of healing? Now they're talking about a story. Yet its elements are simple. Circumstances made him willing to believe. He humbly offered himself to his maker, then he knew. Even so has God restored us all to our right minds. What? Not psychology? I'm not anti-psychology. I'm a mental health therapist here. But to this man, the revelation was sudden. What? Not dragged out over 3 years? Now, I'm not trying, it says some of us grow into it more slowly, but it has come to all who have honestly sought him. Seeking involves some kind of work. When we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. Simple. I actually like this. This came to me. It says, the actions of step 2 and 3. Step 2 is believing that there's a power greater than myself. That's a trust action. And 3 is actually prayer, which involves surrender. Okay, how it works. This is telling it how it works. We're going to go through this. Some of us tried to hold on to our own ideas, and the result was nil till we let go, absolutely. So start fresh, clear the screen. And it says, without help, it is too much for us. All those, all that's required. But there is one who has all power, that one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. So if we do this at a proper tempo, guess what? We are more likely to have a complete experience. Not perfect, but complete. And if we do it slowly, we're going to get relapse. We're going to get our desire, our resolve will fall apart, and it's dragged out forever. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. So letting go of control. Here are the actions. I'm just going to read the actions because some of you probably know. We admitted we were powerless. Our lives had become unmanageable, came to believe, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of self, submitted to God, to ourselves, and other human beings, the exact nature of our wrongs. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. That's as simple as it gets. Made a list of all the people we had harmed, made direct amends to people, continued to take personal inventory, and sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him. praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry it out. We try to carry this message to other addicts, alcoholics, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. It talks about, oh no, I won't be able to maintain perfect adherence to this. We're not saints. The point is we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. These principles are set down as guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Progress is going to imply that you're actually taking action and moving. Three things are key. We are sexaholic or alcoholic or spendaholic or drug addict and cannot manage our own lives. B, probably no human power can relieve our addiction, and that God could and would if he were sought. So there's that seeking. So this is a great thing we're not going to talk about, but what does step 3 look like? It looks like all of this, a director who wants to run the whole show. And it gives you what to do. What's interesting is at the end of step 3, it says we found it very desirable to take the spiritual step with an understanding person, etc. The wording was, of course, optional. Okay. This was only a beginning. This is the bottom of page 63. This is only a beginning, though if honestly and humbly made an effect, sometimes a very great one was felt at once. So that's cool. So when I do step 1 and 2 and 3, often in the first setting, and in the early days of AA, it was often done in the first setting. Because the person, well, I don't have to reiterate it, it's just self-explanatory. Next, we launched off into a course of vigorous action. Vigorous action. The first step of which is personal housekeeping. Though our decision, meaning step 3, was a vital and crucial step, it could have little permanent effect unless at once followed by a strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which have been blocking us. Our liquor or lust or overeating, overspending, overworking, whatever, was but a symptom. We had to get down to causes and conditions. So why on earth would anybody who has an addiction is going to try to slow something down? It says right in this book, step 3 will have little permanent effect unless other actions are taken. We have to get down to roots and causes, and we need to look at the things that are blocking power from us. So I believe in doing step 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 in one setting. It's not that hard to do. It's actually easier and more effective. Did I used to do things a slow way? Yes, I did. Do I see the results back then? No. In fact, it was just not fun if I look back. This actually is quite fun. This is all step 4. And you'll see that the steps just kind of all flow together. This is talking about the sexual inventory and the wrongs to others. This is cool. We hope you are convinced now that God can remove whatever self-will has blocked you off from him. If you already have made a decision, step 3, and an inventory of your grosser handicaps, you have made a good beginning. Wow, so it's beginning. What if it's implied there that this wasn't a 6-month process? Okay, someone 6 months, well, you're making a good beginning. No, this was done in like a week. Okay. So then into action. Wow, that should tell us here what this program's about. It's a spiritual program of action. Now these things are to be cast out. Well, that sounds simple. This required action on our part, which then completed will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our defects. This is step 5. Now, on step 5, you will see that they take some time to, not everybody did this way. Some people just got someone to share their 5th step with. But, in this case, it looks like it was a little bit slower. Okay. Looks a little bit slower, but not drawn out. Talks about even going to people of religious denominations. Look for a closed mouth, understanding friend, perhaps doctor, psychologist. So that could take some time. It actually says here, though, we pocket our pride, into it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we're delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. So 4 and 5, that's what's this like heart surgery that unblocks all the stuff that's blocking us from this, um, lack of power coronary. And it says, where we may have had spiritual beliefs, now we're having a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink or the lust or the compulsive eating, spending, gambling, etc., problem has disappeared. That feeling will start to come and will often come strongly. If you out there are not experiencing that in your program, you might try doing it this way, because that's my experience. If we can answer to our own satisfaction, top of page 76, at step 6, we have emphasized willingness to be indispensable. And now we're ready to let God remove all these things which have been objectionable. Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us to be willing. Oh, boy. So if you have the mess right there in front of you, why wouldn't you just pray right then or there to have God to remove the defects of character, which could be about five of them. The inventory is not all these resentments. It's actually the defects of character. So, the original process in the Oxford groups were four things: total surrender to God. So that I'm with step 1, 2, and 3, sharing or confession, restitution or amends, and guidance. So step 6 and 7, are really one step. You're just asking God to remove these defects of character that stand in the way of my usefulness to God. And then, so you go right to need more action. What? Not waiting another month? No. And often I jump into step 10 and 11 to give people the idea what to do daily, so that when they do their 8th and 9th step amends, they have all the support they need from God. This is going to take some time to read, and this might take some time. It might actually take 1, 2, or 3 weeks to go through all that. If a person doesn't want to do step 8 or 9, I think that they run the risk of keeping a blockage between them and God, which then they could relapse again. And that's there's stories where they talked about that. On the other hand, making amends, sometimes it takes time, and living amends is better than just apologizing over and over. And sometimes it's going to be over years if you're paying something back. So you would pray about it, and certainly not do it alone, but work with your sponsors on that. So then we clean house with the family, page 83, asking each morning a meditation that our Creator show us the way of patience, tolerance, kindliness, and love. Wait. How can you get to step 10 and 11 before you've done your 8th and 9th? See, that's where people were praying and asking God for all these things, for the defects of character to be removed, so that then they would have everything they needed. The spiritual life is not a theory. We have to live it. So more about step 9, then the promises, which are great. That can be another thing you read on your own. This thought brings us to step 10, which just suggests we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of living as we have cleaned up the past. So, what does vigorous mean? Well, vigorous, I looked it up: strong and healthy, robust, growing and spreading rapidly, characterized by or done with force and energy. Okay. So that to me is very interesting. That we see this vigorous, over and over. And so it doesn't mean slow and drawn out. It doesn't mean thoughtful and analytical and going on and on. Yeah, no. I would rather someone rush a little bit through the steps than go too slow. Because in step 10, anything you missed will come up daily. And there's nothing wrong with going back and calling it a step 4 to do it over again, but I just think of it as step 10. It says, we vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. What? So steps 1 through 9, it's implied here that we vigorously did that and that we were cleaning up the past, meaning step 9. We were vigorously do this. So now every day we vigorously do this. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes in the morning, 10 or 15 minutes at night. And throughout the day, things will come up, resentments, fears, dishonesty, and resentment. Here it says right here. And when they crop up, we ask God at once to remove them. We discuss them with someone immediately and make amends quickly if we've harmed anyone. We then quickly, not slow and drawn out. And it says we ask God at once to remove them. Not, I think I'll think about it. I think I'll go right out and inventory. I think I'll journal. No, just simply ask God, could you please help me not to be so controlling here? Help me to see what I need to do differently. I invite you into this situation. Or say like I'm dishonest. I will feel sick to my stomach. I've got to make amends and call someone. I am sorry. I was dishonest. I lied to you. It's simple, not complicated. Is it fun? Not necessarily, but if you do it, I can guarantee you will have a spiritual experience that will blow your mind. And then you'll start to go, well, why do I not want to live like this the rest of my life? So we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol or lust or spending or gambling or compulsive overeating or trying to control the universe, aka codependency. For by this time, sanity will have returned. We'll seldom be interested in liquor or a drug of choice. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude towards liquor or any of our drugs or behaviors has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We're not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. By the way, we're not analyzing it. We feel as though we've been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So what is fit spiritual condition? Steps 10 and 11, integrating it with your faith background, practicing these principles in all your affairs. It sounds daunting. Oh no, I have to be perfect. No, perfectionism is part of the things we're praying away. Being real and honest before God and our fellows and making amends. That it's very simple, not easy to do. So with this state of just neutrality, safe and protected, you think, well, I could just stop. Yeah, it'd be easy to let up on a spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. Laurels are those crowns of victory in the Olympic Games, but we're headed for trouble if we do. For alcohol or a drug is a subtle foe. We're not cured of our addiction. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent upon the maintenance of a spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision and God's will into all our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. These are thoughts which must go with us constantly. We can exercise our willpower along this line all we wish. It is the proper use of the will. I mean, I should just not comment because the words are really good. If anything about this video, just encourage you to get a copy of the PDF of this online, start reading it, or get a hardback copy and underline it and just see what, there's like, just start to interact with it. Much has already been said about receiving strength, inspiration, and direction from him who has all knowledge and power. If we have carefully followed directions, so we have begun to sense the flow of his spirit into us. So here's my point on this. If we're not going to carefully follow directions and going to drag this out and add a whole bunch of stuff in from treatment centers and other books and things outside the program, you can expect you're not going to have long-term sobriety. Or if you do, you won't be as happy and serene as you could be, because you won't even know to ask God to remove the defects of character daily, or you won't even know how to fight resentment. I spent years not knowing what I didn't know, and it was not as fun. Yeah, was I sober? Yeah, but I don't have what I have today. Step 11, suggest prayer and meditation. We shouldn't be shy in this matter of prayer. Better men than we are using it constantly. It works if we have a proper attitude and work at it. And here it tells us exactly what to do. We have a whole video on this, so we don't need to talk about this. We are surprised that the right answers will come after we have tried this a while. This is the actual practicing of it. We have a little leg. It works. It really does. Right before that, if we humbly say to ourselves over and over, thy will be done, stop running the show, we're then in much less danger of excitement, fear, anger, worry, self-pity, or foolish decisions. We become more efficient. We do not tire so easily, for we are not burning up energy foolishly as we try to arrange life to suit ourselves. It really does. It works. It really does. We alcoholics are undisciplined, so we let God discipline or teach us in the simple way we have just outlined. Simple way. But that is not all. There is more action and more action. Faith without works is dead. Wow. So if there's anything we've learned about this, this is not about analysis or thinking things through or, support from others. I mean, those things are okay, but they're not going to keep you sober. So hopefully this did not step on too many toes, but I wanted to risk whatever you thought of me and just I don't need popularity, but I don't know what I'm saying. People get offended by this. Well, go ahead and be offended. But did I not say anything that's just in this book that started this all? I mean, that's the deal. Either, I was just doing the reading and just pointing out that there's nothing in this book that suggests even slightly that we should slow down. So, maybe I need to clarify a little bit. I hear people say, I think you should get 30 days of sobriety before we start step 1. Where did that come from? That sounds stupid to me. If a person can get 30 days without working the program, then maybe they're not an alcoholic. 2, I've heard many of my clients say, my sponsor wants me to slow down. Yeah, that's unfortunate. It took me 4 months. No, for my first step, 9 months to do it. I'll tell them myself. For my 4th step, 9 months. Yeah, I'd never do that. And I was just handed this book and said, just go do it by yourself. Yeah, that's not what you do. This is like a cooking class where you cook with your sponsee. And you do it together, and it's safe and protected, and it works really well. And I've worked with people, and I'm not praising myself in the slightest. I'm telling you how exciting this is. I've worked with people who suffered for 10, 20 years of being in 12-step groups. We do it just simply like this in a few weeks. They're in tears. I'm in tears. Why? Because they have the miracle of recovery. And Their treatment center of $60,000 or 5 years of psychotherapy didn't help them. I'm not putting those things down, but it either really works or it doesn't. How many people have really successfully gotten sober by treatment centers? And is there one that's just beyond everything else? I mean, just let me know. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear it because I love to hear success stories. Second of all, psychotherapy. I think psychotherapy, if you look at it as a whole, most people are very happy with the results. There's very little times where people aren't helped. I mean, it depends on finding the right fit, and maybe marital therapy is more challenging, but as a whole, it has higher success rates than heart disease and some of these things. Yeah, no, it's strange. If you look at it from a medical point of view. When it comes to addiction, I don't see it. I don't see that my learning and understanding why I became an addict is why now I'm sober today. Yeah. Or we just tried willpower. Now, of course, I'm seeing people that come and they're now hooked on something else. They gave up alcohol 7 years ago. Now they're on Xanax. And then they get off of Xanax, and without a 12-step, are they going to turn to food or some other coping mechanism? So anyway, I want to leave on a positive note. I wish you all well. Go ahead and leave comments, and just you have a great day of recovery.